Hey, what's up, everybody? Isaac here, Civil Engineering Academy. Excited to be with you on another podcast episode. Thanks for liking and subscribing and leaving comments. We love all that stuff, and it helps with our stuff in this part of the internet, wherever you're finding us. So we're excited about that. Today, I bring a special guest on who has a very unique journey to passing his PE exam. He actually only studied for 1 month. He found Civil Engineering Academy, used our review program to help him pass this thing, and was able to pass in 1 month. Now, this is not typical and something I usually don't recommend. I usually recommend a longer runway for study prep. But in his case, he was challenged by his boss to do this. His boss encouraged him to just go take it and fell. And it almost was like reverse psychology in that he wanted to put his best foot forward and try to pass this thing the first time. So he dedicated a schedule, created a schedule, and was able to get this thing over with. And that's just a very few details as to what he did to get this thing done. But his name is Connor Aycock, and he is working in Phoenix, Arizona, where it's very hot, but he's been there for a little bit, brand new to a new city. Just recently, has him and his wife, new city, new job, lots of newness going on. He graduated from the University of Alabama, was able to pass his FE, and then was able to take his PE in Arizona and knocked it out after 1 month of study. He didn't plan on doing this. In fact, he wanted to take some live courses, but because the challenge was issued and he was encouraged to just go take and fill it, took our course. It was all on demand. I was able to get it done. So his story is super unique. Let's bring in Connor to talk about it. He'll be coming up in just a minute. See you there. All right, Connor, we're rocking and rolling. Thanks for joining me today on the Civil Engineering Academy podcast. I appreciate you doing this with me.
Yeah, thank you, Isaac.
Yeah, I'm pumped and excited. I know relatively recently passed the PE exam, kind of on the mind, so we're excited to chat about it. I always love to kind of kick these off, though, just kind of describing, what's your own background? How did you land into this world of civil engineering?
Oh, that's a great question. I think throughout this entire conversation, I'm going to be shouting out people who have steered me in good directions throughout this. I actually started off pre-med, going out to college, but the scholarship program at the University of Alabama that I ended up getting to take led me towards the engineering program. The engineering program at the time gave really good out-of-state scholarships. So I moved from Colorado to the University of Alabama, and it was one of the best decisions I made because I left that pre-med life and switched to civil engineering. And I was really interested in the opportunity to be outside, as well as getting to see the work that we do every single day. That was the coolest part.
That's awesome. Was that a hard switch to make, or was it pretty easy for you to switch from pre-med to civil?
So I was pre-med, but I was in chemical engineering.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So I was kind of going along the lines of, hey, the engineering school is going to give me more money. I could have gone out of state if it weren't for that. I would have ended up going to community college instead. And so they gave me the opportunity, and then I was sitting in the chemical engineering class, and I was like, well, if I don't decide to go to med school, I don't want to be a chemical engineer. I did that 1 hour class, sitting, where we learned what chemical engineers do, and it just did not appeal to me. So I did some research. I had the quick jump away from chemical, and I went to mechanical for about a month. And then when I actually sat down and did the research, I landed in civil. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
So what do you do today?
So today I work for a company in Phoenix, Arizona, in site development. So we do, I have a lot of experience in Tennessee, where I lived the past 3 years. And so it's a lot of grading and drainage, stormwater management, that sort of thing. And then here in Arizona, we do way more like residential work, a bit smaller jobs than I have experience in. In Tennessee, I did a lot of big subdivisions and parks and recreation. And then here in Phoenix, it's a lot of remodels or new homes. Phoenix is growing like crazy, has been for a long time, and so I get to be a part of a lot of cool projects. It's all across the valley.
Man, think you'll be a developer one day? Is that the goal?
I don't know. you asked that question. I think I do have an interest in coaching and possibly even teaching in the future.
Nice.
So I'm kind of front ending my career experience to hopefully be able to go do coaching at some point full time.
That'd be awesome.
So that's a cool idea, but development's also really fun too. So I could see myself doing that, and I could see myself being an engineer forever too.
You got options.
Yeah.
Well, let's dive into your PE journey. So you finished school. I guess you took the FE while you were in school, I'm assuming.
Actually, no. So I graduated in 2019, and then I actually studied for the FE by myself. I took that in 2 years after I graduated, actually. So I took the travel and ski bum life a little bit after college. I moved back to Colorado, and I enjoyed that. And then when I started working full time, my mentor at the time was like, "Hey, take your FE and go work in site development." So this is actually my third job out of school. I moved a couple times, but
okay.
Yeah, I've been all over the place, and I'm going to name a bunch of states.
Yeah. So where did you settle on taking the PE then, and how did that work in terms of like the timeline? Did you have to wait 4 years, or could you take it immediately after the FE? How did that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So most of my experience, like I said, was in Tennessee. My wife was going to grad school at the time, so we lived there in Nashville. And in Tennessee, you have to wait all 4 years before you can take the exam. So that was my plan / considering going to a different state to take the exam. But really, I was just thinking that it was going to be take it at 4 years because that's what the people ahead of me did. And then when I got to Arizona, it was I could take the exam right away. So I basically at my introduction lunch, my new boss looked at me and said, "So, are you taking it next week?"
Arizona's got a little more aggressive timelines. You could take that quick.
I think you can take it at 60 months of experience / education. And so basically he asked that question, and I was like, oh man, I was planning on preparing a lot more than taking it quick. And he said, fortunately, and I'm really thankful to him for this, but he said, "Hey, I'll pay for you to fail it. Like, I'll pay for it a couple times. I'd rather have you get the experience and see what the exam is like and go from there." And so that kind of launched me into a few day journey of really seeing what it would look like to take it quick and finding the sweet spot and actually signing up first for your starter toolkit course, which gave me the framework to then decide to do the depth or the breadth course.
Awesome. So yeah, you took it. I mean, maybe you can tell our audience kind of what I mean, from the time you met your boss to taking your course to taking the exam, what was that timeline?
So I started May 6th, and then I took the exam June 12th. So May 6th or May 7th, he told me, "Hey, you're going to take this exam." And so really he wouldn't have forced me to do it. It was my ambition that led me to take it quick as well. But I wanted to get the exam in the window. I wanted to get it before June, because if I had waited till July, then I would have to wait all the way until October to take it again. And so once I figured that out, that was really motivating for me as well, because I think I was sitting on the goal of studying 120 hours total. That was kind of what my peers did. They studied for 120. And so when I was looking for it, I was like, okay, I'll take it in July. But then when I learned that if I took it in July, I wouldn't be able to take it again until October, that really changed my mentality to say, all right, I have to take this in June, and then all the exams. The latest exam was June 12th. So I think people kind of back end, they pick up those exams towards the end of the section to give themselves some time. So I didn't have any choices. I looked in Las Vegas, I looked in New Mexico, and the latest one was in June. So
that's amazing.
I feel very fortunate and really am thankful to you, Isaac, and to the whole CEA for helping me build the structure to be able to do this, because I would not have been able to do it without your help.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So how did you structure like your study plan? You know, you prepared for this. I mean, there was no prep before this. Mm-hmm. I mean, besides you had some FE stuff, sounds like, but maybe what was that gap between FE and starting to prepare for PE?
Yep. So the FE I took in 2021. So it'd been 3 years.
Oh boy.
I had done all that by myself. I just bought one book, or I guess I bought the book and the questions and kind of just went through that. One thing that was really helpful this time around was being able to quit something and move on. I didn't have that when I was studying my FE. So I would bury myself in doing way too much in one concept, learn it really well, and then it wasn't, I only had 2 questions on it. So the structure for the PE that was really helpful was you had the 16-week structure. I was condensing it down to 4.5.
Wow.
And so I basically had to look through and say, I'm gonna sit down after work for 2.5 hours, and then one day on the weekend I'm gonna do 6. And I really stuck to that. I had a timer. If I was studying, the timer was running. If I wasn't studying, I turned it. I paused it. I really looked at this thing like, okay, I don't want to have to take this twice. I'm going to be really serious about this. I have the opportunity to be serious about this right now. I don't have kids. We just moved to a new city, so I don't know anybody. So I don't have FOMO. I'm not missing out on anything going on. And at the same time, my wife was working at that time. She was doing training until 8 p.m. So I literally had this window
perfect
of I'm gonna just try to bust through this right now. And like I said, your structure and your videos helped me start, have a plan, but then move on from things that weren't going to be as beneficial to me.
Yeah, we try to tailor the course to like getting you just what you need. People sometimes are looking for a college course, and that's not the way you should be thinking about this exam. You kind of need to learn what the NCES does and the hoops you need to jump through. So we try to give you just what you need to pass. So I'm glad you found that. I'm curious how you even found us. Wow, what was that like?
Yeah, you actually asked that question beforehand. So I went through my history and found it's on Test Prep Insight.
Oh.
You guys were listed as the best value, and you didn't have a live course, which I didn't care about the live course because I had the condensed schedule anyway.
All right.
I would have planned to do a live course actually in a different scenario, but having all your whole course right there, just primed and ready for me to sit there and listen to it.
Dive into it.
Just go through it. Yeah. I was at 1.5 speed or something. So your voice was a little more high pitched than it is today.
Well, yeah, you get that option. That's how everyone listens to podcasts anyway. So they're all listening to this at 2x. So, well, crazy, man. I'm so curious how you talked about this already, but you managed your time really effectively. You're in a new city, new job. Your wife had training going on. What tips would you have, or would you share with somebody that is trying to build a schedule to help tackle this, and their life is maybe crazy busy, or maybe they have kids or whatnot, but what tips would you give for them?
I had a 1-pager to start off that had every day kind of boxed out for the time that I was going to study through to the exam. And at the top of it, I said, all that matters is that you try. And I think that that's something that was really important for me to just say, hey, you just need to sit down here and try today. Try to learn today. And then tracking those hours to the 15 minutes, just like I do at work for billable hours, to the 15 minutes, I'm being very clear with how well I'm doing. And so right in the middle, I had 4 days in a row where I was planning on studying 2.5 hours, and I only studied for, 1.5. Looking at that and then being like, oh, I really need to step it up for the rest of the week if I'm really going to do what I'm saying that I'm committing to here. And so all that mattered to me was that I was going to put the time in on the front end and then show up at the exam. I knew that I was going to have the opportunity and the grace from my employer to be able to take it multiple times. But I really just had the mentality of just show up every day, click through these videos, take good notes, do basically the all the questions that you had in your breakdown. It's the worksheet. And I don't know if your listeners know exactly what I'm talking about. If it's,
they probably don't know everything that comes in the course, but yeah, you could talk about that, or maybe some of the best parts you thought were valuable in the course.
Yeah, I mean the specific questions for each bit of material, that helped me not just get totally inundated with one subject matter or one type of question and then lose an entire day of studying to try to figure something out that ultimately wasn't even on the test. And so that was something that I really tried to hold near and dear. Sometimes these questions, you get so much dopamine because the engineering economics questions are so easy. They're kind of fun, so like, you're like, man, I could just do this for another 2 days, but it's like, no, you do the couple of questions that Isaac tells you to do and then move on. Just go to the next bit of material.
That's very interesting how you tackled all that. For you, was there any surprises on the exam when you took it? Was it like, whoa, I wasn't prepared for this?
Yeah, so I took the water resources exam, and the hardest part for me was that I didn't do any of the depth preparation. I didn't have time. I really, like I said, in 4 weeks, I did 87 hours of studying. So yeah, and like it was a perfect opportunity for me to do that. There's very few times that I know how lucky I am in that in the timing, for sure. And also, I'm not always that motivated of a person either. Let's be very clear. I'm not constantly doing this. I was just motivated for this case. But what was your question again? I'm sorry.
Well, like, was there any surprises on the exam? Like, you went and took it, and you're like, oh my gosh, I was not prepared. You mentioned the depth stuff. Maybe you weren't quite as prepared for, but you were able to get through it. Was there anything else that you felt like?
Yeah, the depth was the hardest part. I think another thing that messes with your mind during the exam is that when you know the answer to a question, you get it really quick, and then you spend very little energy thinking about it again. So then when you don't know the answer to a question, and you mark it, you save it, you go back to it at the end of the exam, and you spend, you have 6 questions that you want to get through, and you have an hour left, and you're spending 20 minutes on one question that you don't know. You think that you're a failure. You think that you didn't set, and especially when all of them were in the depth part that I wasn't as comfortable with, specifically the water and wastewater treatment.
Mm-hmm.
I was just so upset that I had spent more time on other things that only showed up for 4 questions, whereas I had 9 wastewater questions. It just really was. It was the depth. The depth was just, there was a lot more questions, a lot deeper. Crazy enough.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest surprise was just like the mental talk of just, you don't realize how little you think about your little wins. You don't think about your wins. You only think about your failures during your exam, or what feel like failures.
They kind of get burned in your brain after the exam. Like, you knew which one you've spent way too much time on, and
Exactly.
it sticks with you. Well, I think your experience is pretty unique. I think it's really cool you have an employer that almost like encouraged you to just get in there and fail it. Like, it's okay to fail this thing. Go explore what it's like. And that almost like was like reverse psychology for you, because it motivated you to actually want to do it. And it ended up working. So that's awesome. I'm curious, during this process, what did you learn about yourself? What about your own strengths or weaknesses during this process that you discovered about yourself, being able to get this done in like a month?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson that I learned about myself was that I can be more strategic than I think I can be. I think I've learned that as being an engineer too, just working and having to, come back to projects day after day. I've grown the muscle of having like strategy to accomplish a big task. I think as we grow up and in school, everything's kind of broken down for you already. Hey, here's this homework. Here's this one test. Here's this bigger exam. And I would just eat away whatever was given to me. But then when you actually have these bigger goals or these bigger projects that you're working on, having to strategize it on your own is not something that I think I had as much of a muscle for. And I think that was really shown during this particular exam.
Oh, it's something really good that you learned. A lot of people are curious about the exam itself. Do you feel like they threw a lot of theory at you? And did the course help you prepare for that in any way?
Oh man, that's a good question. I don't want to say one way or the other, honestly, because what I might think is a lot of theory, someone else might not. I really don't. I really wanted to rely as best as I could on knowing what was in the handbook.
Mm-hmm.
And if I knew it was in the handbook, I would kind of leave it alone. Or not leave it alone, but know how to work it, know how to work what was in the handbook, what was given to me. And then if it was theory, I would try my best to understand the why, but otherwise I wasn't really. And that was what was hard about water resources, is there kind of is theoretical questions that, I guess actually, definitely. There's more theory things. And then I think I was learning while I was taking the exam too, searching keywords in the handbook, it bringing up 3 different results. And then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to make my best educated guess based on the little bit that's provided here. So that's a tough one. I don't think for breadth there was as much theory as I was expecting, but I guess for depth there was.
Yeah, a lot of folks are thrown off by that. Sometimes they feel like they were sideswiped by a bunch of theory and they weren't fully prepared. It's hard to fully prepare somebody for that. So, we give some bonus theory questions. We talk about, as you're solving problems, think about them as if you were an instructor. How would you ask this as a theory question, to try to just get your mind thinking how you would ask something in a different way. So I was just curious how that, was with your experience. But another question always comes up too is like, how much alternative item type stuff was thrown at you? Was it only 2, 3, or 4 questions, or was there like more than that?
Oh, that's a good question. I had one fill in the blank, which is really annoying for this exam. I'm like, man, come on. Why are you giving me a fill in the blank? I'm going to spell it wrong.
No.
And then I think there were a couple matching, and I think that was it. So I think it was 2 or 3 on this one. Not a lot. I wouldn't worry about them too much, actually. I think I think that most of us can figure that out if we're doing all the practice exams anyway.
So,
Questions.
Connor, would you change anything about your study, getting this exam over with? If you felt like there was more time, would you have studied more, or are you happy with the way you did it?
So what I would have done differently is I would have spent more time doing my depth specifically. If I really would have started from the beginning, I would have, I don't think I would have had enough time to go through your entire depth program because the amount of time that I had was enough to get through your breadth program. And that was about it. I really didn't have that much more time, but I would have spent a bit more time in my specific disciplines. I learned a lot about geotech using your program, and I only really had a couple questions on geotech. And I think I spent close to 25 hours studying for geotech. So 25 hours to study for about 5 questions. Now, who knows what kind of auxiliary questions, elements in other questions showed up that I had a better understanding of, but there were really only like 5 specific geotech questions and 45 to 50 depth water resources questions. Just it was heavy. It was a lot heavier than I thought. So that's what I would change. And I'm glad that I took it so quick, because if I had studied for another 87 hours, I don't think I would have done nearly as much. I still think I would have done way more breadth than I would have done depth. I didn't have that understanding that it was going to be so heavy, which
Interesting.
sounds silly. It sounds silly because half the test is supposed to be depth, but it didn't register in my brain that I needed to spend probably half the time on depth. I mean, that's what it came down to.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm glad the course was able to help you in some way. If you were to recommend this course to someone else, why would you recommend it over something else, another course?
I would definitely recommend it because you have all of those, all of the courses, all the videos, the modules right there in front of you. You can go back and you can take a look at them if you missed something. But then right below all the modules, you have specific questions for what you just learned. And then you have a whole big list of other questions, and you have people that are on there to answer your questions if you have them. So if I didn't understand how someone got to an answer, I could scroll down. Someone else had already asked that same question in the comments, and it was responded to, and I could get that answered. So I would highly recommend it. And if you're wondering if you should take it or not, do the starter toolkit first, because I was skeptical of spending any money, at all.
It's a whole pricey too.
Yeah. No matter what, it's gonna cost you money, but I think that buy-in also helps you take it more seriously, and so that's really helpful as well. So get the starter toolkit, and then see what it's like to study with Isaac, and then if that works for you, send it, go for it, because it's awesome. He's going to tell you to crack open your favorite beverage. I wanted to say, I've got my Waterloo Costco.
Nice.
So I was wondering if you had
me. I got this blue cup, but it's just water today. So,
okay.
Usually it's a diet dew or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, break open your favorite beverage. It's going to be a bit.
Yeah.
Grab your snacks.
Exactly. Yeah, I was riding at this desk right here and drinking this seltzer water.
Love it. Well, we love hearing all that. Love hearing your story. Your success story is amazing. I think your results are not typical, but I think people can do it. So if you're looking to dedicate the time like you did to getting it done, I think you can do it. So are there any other tips you would share with anyone preparing for the PE exam, or specifically for water resources, now that you've gone through this?
I think that there's two major things. It's strategize with what you think you need and then communicate that with the people that are invested in your life. Because I was able to look at what I needed to do, and then I was very easily able to tell my wife exactly what I was going to be committing my time to. And it made it easier for both of us just to know that I was going to be locked in a room for a while. So there's people that are cheering for you. And if you're clear with them, then they're going to help you get there and they're going to help you strategize. And I think bringing in those people that have a vested interest in your success and letting them know what your goals are, they're going to help you out. And so shout out to my wife, shout out to my employer, and then shout out to my school. Roll Tide.
Nice. Well, awesome. Thank you, Connor, for sharing your story with us. Super inspiring. And hopefully others can learn from this. And if they're wanting to accelerate their study or get the PE just over with, maybe there's some tips they can learn from your experience. So thanks for jumping on, and maybe we'll chat with you in the future.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.